Okay, this is the check where I ask y'all how cold it is where you are. Chrissy, you're not allowed to respond. Chrissy's in Florida.
It was 25 this morning.
No, no, just no.
We were swimming in our pool last week.
No. Are your boys at school or do you homeschool?
They are in school this year. This is the first year that we did that. It's been the most amazing thing ever.
You're like, oh, I love teachers when they're not me.
Exactly. My kids listen way better.
All the things go so much better, I think. I think people that homeschool are called to it and God has gifted them for that season or for that calling, but that is not my calling. So I have no, how you have like no grace for it because it's not actually, you haven't been called to it. So you're like, I don't Rebecca Folks always says, I don't have a file for that. So I don't have one for homeschooling. So when I look at people, I'm like, oh, you and the Lord have just got to be like in constant conversation all day long.
Yeah. I look back and I'm like, how did I do that? I wasn't called to it either.
Well, for a season, obviously, like even I think my boys were in school. I mean, we have obviously a dynamic situation, but my boys were like in a program from like 3-year-olds on, or like Will was in one even younger because Ella needed to get the special therapy. So I had to put him in something when they were little. And so I remember like his 3-year-old teacher was like, he's a special kid who needs more guidance than what we can provide here. And like, not kidding, she's the athletic director's secretary at the high school now. So she sees him, like she saw him play his first JV game and she came up, she's like, I'm just gonna be honest, when he was 3, I was worried about that kid. And I was like, I'm so glad it all just worked out. But I'm so glad there are teachers that like shaped him to be who he is. So, okay. We have a thing Beck always says too, that our team doesn't show up till about 5 after whenever we say the time is. We're going to start saying the calls are like 15 minutes before they are. And then we're just going to talk and then we're going to start the calls. But
my husband has to tell me the wrong time when we go to leave so that we show up on time because I'm always behind. So
is he there during the day all day? Are y'all in the house all day long together?
Yeah.
How does that like, and like, is he like in your business all day long or y'all like doing your own things all day?
It depends. He has a lot of like downtime. So it's been good. And usually Hunter's not here on Mondays and Fridays, but on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he's here with me.
So it's like,
yeah.
Okay. I am going to let Megan tell her story because it's so much more fun. But okay, I'm not even going to introduce Megan. I'm going to tell you a story about Megan and I together little over a year ago. So I get to Mexico. This shows you all like how connected the jewels get to be at the level when we get to travel together and see each other all the time and adore each other's spouses and like get to be really good friends. Even again, we're not on the same team. Megan will tell you who her upline is and how we're like way not connected anytime soon. So I'm by myself in Mexico last year on our jewel trip. I'm at one end of our resort and you have to go all the way to the front of the resort to get on the shuttle bus. So I golf cart my way all the way up, realize I don't have my lanyard and I have to go all the way back. So Megan and Phil are like, yeah, we'll go back with you. I'm like, you don't have to, everyone's going to the party. They're like, no, we'll go with you. So we come all the way back. We get on a shuttle bus. The shuttle bus gets halfway to where we're going and decides to turn around. There's a language barrier, to say the least. And there might have been shouting involved. There might have been persuading of the driver. But at the end of the day, we end up all the way back at the resort where I've now been like too many times to count. Like, I just want to get to the party. It's the welcome party in Mexico. It's always so much fun. You see everybody for the first time. We get on another shuttle bus. This shuttle bus gets us there. Then we get from that shuttle bus, we walk down a bunch of steps through some stuff, get on another golf cart, get all the way down to the beach. Y'all, steps from my room. The entire time I could have walked out my door and walked across a little boardwalk and been at the party. I could see and hear the party the rest of the night. when I got back to my room. Like it was that close. I was literally at the very end of corner of the resort next to where the beach party was. But these people stayed with me. They loved on me. I was not alone. My husband was all the way back in Texas taking care of our kids. And I did not feel alone and isolated, although I did want to cry a few times that night. So just know when you go to Plexus events, there are people that will take you in and love you and laugh with you, because if we had not laughed, we would have cried. It was so traumatic just trying to get to this party. So that's my long way of saying how much I love the Milakovics. And then I even talked about the fact that we got to like connect when she came here for Gold School. We went to dinner with just her Gold group. It wasn't even, none of my team was at the dinner, and we just get to hang out. And I think the more you're in this company and the more you meet the people that are in this company, the more you feel connected to something bigger than you, to teams that fill your cup as much as you get to fill their cups. And I just think it's actually really amazing how cyclical all of that part of it is. So I'm gonna let Megan talk because she's an incredible speaker. But just know that I count her as a dear friend. So here you go. Go, Meg.
Oh, well, thank you. Actually, I'm going to take it back even farther to when I very first started Plexus. I'm not even sure what rank I was. I don't know, maybe senior gold at this point, maybe Ruby. I don't know. I was just and I ranked up pretty quickly in the beginning. So it was somewhere in those beginning stages. And I was, of course, so hungry for this business. So I was on YouTube and I was watching like tons and tons of training videos. Well, a lot of the videos that I was watching were Andrea's, and I didn't even really know who she was. So Alita says to me, she's like, I'm going to get you on a call with her. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you have those diamonds, you have those jewels that you're just like, these are the best people in the world. Here I am, brand new to this business. And she's like, I'm going to see if she'll do a call with us. Like, I'll get you on the call. Sure enough, she does. And mind you, like Andrea said, we're not connected in the slightest bit in any of our downlines, uplines, all the things, like we're not. Okay. So she, out of the graciousness of her heart, gets on a call with me. She doesn't even know me. And I was like so excited, running for emeralds. And that call meant like the world to me. Okay. And so that's where it started from, as like someone who I look up to, I admire. I'm like, they're so amazing. I love them. And then to fast forward a few years to now, we're on the same trips, doing the same things in a space that I once thought, oh my goodness, like I can't imagine what it's going to be like there. Like that's going to be so awesome. To now we're there together. We have fun together. We did not want her to be alone. I just thought in my heart, you know what? If my husband wasn't here, I would absolutely want someone else to be going with me, and that's just the thing. Like in this business, there's going to be certain things, there's going to be sidelines, there's going to be people. And it's like, just operate out of the genuineness of your heart. Like whatever you would want other people to do for you, do that for them. Or if you feel like you're lacking in something, I was just reading the book, Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima. It's amazing. I finished it in like 5 days. It's so, so good. If you have not read it, you need to read it. It's amazing. But in there, she talks about that. She talks about how just living out of that space, that like, if there's something that you see in someone, right? Like say it out loud, speak it out loud. I did that at the store the other day at Target with my kids. There was a lady, and I could hear the joy in her voice. She was working customer service at Target at Christmas time, right? And it's crazy and all those kinds of things. And so I just went over to her and I just let her know. I said, hey, like I can hear the joy in your voice. And I just wanted you to know that. Like, I hope you have an amazing day. And we walked away and my kids were like, that was really nice, Mom. And I said, well, I just have this thing where if I'm hearing something, and I don't always do this, sometimes I chicken out, which is so silly, but it's one of those things of like teaching yourself to step out of your comfort zone. Like if I think something nice about someone, if those thoughts are already running through my head, I really try my hardest to speak it out loud. That's not only going to help you in your business, but it's going to help you in life. So many of the things that we do in this business like really stretch us and really get us out of our comfort zone. And if that's something that makes you feel really uncomfortable to go up to a complete stranger and say, hey, I could just hear the joy in your voice and I wanted you to know that, or compliment somebody on something that they see, or a mom who seems to be struggling with her toddler of just like, hey, hang in there, you're doing an amazing job. If those things make you feel uncomfortable, and challenge yourself to do that more and stretch that comfort zone. I remember when I was a senior gold, my husband challenged me to get out of the house every single day and meet 2 new people in person. Because on our IPA sheets, it had add 2 new friends to Facebook. And he was like, if you want to go emerald in a year, you're going to have to really step this up. It's like, okay, game on. And he was like, get out of the house. So for the whole month of August, I got out of the house and I met 2 new people. Sometimes those people ended up on Facebook. Sometimes they didn't, but it was literally the act of getting out of the house, stretching my comfort zone, and talking to new people. Now, did I sign any of those people in that moment that month? No, it wasn't about that, but I actually did have my highest recruiting month that month because I was just doing scary things. It had nothing to do with the actual people that I was talking to. But now when I'm at an airport and I see someone, I can strike up a conversation with them and add them on Facebook without even blinking an eye. And chances are in 6 months to a year, that person will most likely sign up with me. I have met so many people in the randomest places, but because I have been willing to get out of my comfort zone, because I made so many mistakes in those first times. You guys, I could tell you stories about how awkward I have been in front of people. I still have moments where we leave a conversation and feels like what was that? You know, I don't have it all together, but I've had a lot of moments of mistakes and things like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that, to now those people who could be my jewels or who could be future people on my team. Now I feel more comfortable having those conversations with them. One time we went to the park. This was very early on in my journey where I was vomiting plexus. And a lady asked me how I was doing or how am I? For some reason, I thought she asked me something different. And I was like, plexus. And she was like, I'm sorry, what? Literally such an awkward conversation. But do you know, I added that lady on Facebook and we still talk back and forth and comment on each other's stuff to this day. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. So even though I had a terrible conversation, we're still going back and forth because that's such an essential piece of our business. Actually, none of that stuff was things that I was going to share, but I hope that you guys enjoyed those stories. So I'll back it up for you guys to a little bit of the beginning of my journey. So we are good family friends with Alita Langford. And we watched her do plexus, and my mom and I and my husband, we used to make fun of her and we were like, oh, it's all about gut health. And we were like, this is ridiculous. I don't know what they're drinking, but it seems really expensive and silly and dumb and all this kind of stuff. And so when her husband unexpectedly passed away, my mom, being the angel that she is, she right away ordered from Alita. She kind of just like jumped in there, was there like every day with the kids, the family, all this kind of stuff. And she was like, we're just going to order. And she really didn't think that it was going to do anything, but she was like, I'm just going to order. And she's like a committed person. She's like, I'm going to take it every day. And if we're spending the money on it, I'm going to do it. She came down to visit us a few months later. And she was like, oh, guys, look, my shorts are loose. We lived in Florida at the time, and it was like in the winter. And we were like, hold up. Are you defending plexus? She was like, yeah, I mean, you guys should try it. Like, my husband's a type 2 diabetic. I was exhausted. I had just had our second baby. And so I gave her my card information. I said, just sign us up. Well, she signed us up under the wrong Cheryl Muller, and none of us knew for like 2 to 3 months. That's how like uninvolved we were in what was happening there. Okay. So we finally got all that switched around and we started taking the products. It still was like, really didn't think it was going to do anything. So we started noticing changes naturally. And we were like, okay, Alita would ask me about going silver. It literally took me 5 months to go silver. And this was her being like, hey, can you do a post for me? Hey, do you think this is going to be the month they're going to find 3 people? And I tell her, nope, I don't think so. And at this point, she was already Emerald after we had joined her. And we'd already watched her up until that point. And so she was very persistent, not in like a very pushy way, but she always came back to it and always came back to it. And so finally I signed up, I signed up my first person, and she just like kept on it. Okay. So 5 months into this, I finally found 3 people, my husband being that third person. And her and Jen Leith get on a Zoom with me, and they're like, you need to go to convention. Okay. So the girl who took 5 months to go silver, they're like, convention is next week in Vegas. You got to go. And we were like, meanwhile, I was signed up to go to another network marketing company's convention, one that I wasn't actually really doing I was making like $200 a month. And it didn't have the residual income. Okay. So I was already booked for this. And Phil thought that they got money if I went to convention. So he was like, because there's other companies that do that. And so he's like, yeah, I'm sure your friends really want you to go. Okay. So we get on this Zoom, and they're like, you just have to go. They poured so much belief into me that they really felt like I could do this. And we got off the call, and he was like, okay, Megan, like, you got to choose. Which one do you want to do? Are you going to do this other company over here, or are you going to do Plexus? Because you can't do both. And I said, I really think I'm going to do Plexus. And in the back of his mind, he thought, oh, I wish you wouldn't pick this, because I'm a start and stop kind of person. And she was like, he knew that if I picked Plexus, I'd really have to like stick with it and couldn't just back out when things got hard. And I said, I'm going to do this. So we canceled my other trip. We booked a trip for Vegas. This was the first time that I had like ever done anything crazy like that. So within a week, we booked flights, found cheap flights. We shared a room at convention. It was me, Alita, Lisa, and Latoya. Latoya shared a bed with me and my baby because I was co-sleeping and nursing him at the time. The 4 of us in a room in Vegas. Okay. I had done traveling before, but never to a place where I didn't know anyone who was picking me up. I'm also really terrible at directions. So the thought of me with a baby going to Vegas, having to get a shuttle from the airport to the whole thing, and then sharing a room with 3 other people was like, but I couldn't afford a room. Right. And so it was a series of steps of just like saying yes to the scary thing, and like just pushing the envelope and saying, okay, this sounds crazy, but I'm going to do this. This sounds crazy, but I'm going to do this. And it was just one step after another. And so while I was there at convention, I will never forget, Les Brown was the speaker. And in there, he shared this video, and he said, I want you guys to listen to it every single day for 30 days. He's like, this is going to change your mindset. It's going to change the way you think about things. Well, I took that and I was like, okay, well, he said 30 days. Well, I'm just going to keep going with it. So I listened to that video almost every single day until I was Emerald. Because when we were at convention, I said, when I come back here next year, I will walk the stage as a jewel. I didn't know how I was going to do it because it took me 5 months to find 3 people, but I was like, I'm going to do this. And I remember standing in the very back at convention, and had my baby in the baby carrier, and I'm watching all the top earners on stage. And I remember hearing their stories and watching them and thinking, there is nothing different about them than me. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. If introverts who had less than 200 friends on Facebook are now top earners in the company, I can absolutely do this. So I didn't know how, but I knew I was going to do it. I made my first little graphic, my first little vision board, and it had an emerald on it. And it said Emerald, I think, what was the year? 2018. That was going to be the next year I was going to go, or 2019. Anyway, I'm bad with dates, but it was a year from whenever I was there. And so I made this graphic, I put it on my phone, and I was starting to look at it every day. That was like the very beginning of like, starting vision boards, doing all this kind of stuff. And something that you have to know is, like, in your heart, you don't have to know every single step. Like, you can jump and grow your wings on the way down. The how of whatever it is that you want to do, the how is always going to come after you first determined in your heart that you're going to do it. It doesn't work the other way around. So if you're waiting to have all of the pieces of information before you go for whatever that next goal is, You're going to be waiting for a really, really long time because that's just not going to happen. You're not going to have all of the steps there. But if you are determined in your heart and you're determined in your mind that absolutely come hell or high water, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but it will happen. You will be amazed at what you can do. And what I will say over that next year, and mind you, this is coming from the person who, when my husband and I got married, I told him that I would never, ever work. I wanted him to know that I want to stay at home and raise babies, and I never want a job. And never, ever. Like, don't expect that from me. And now I'm the breadwinner of our family, which is crazy to think about because that was just so far from anything that I had ever imagined in my life. So, don't give up on those people who are like, I never want to work. I never want to do this, because what I realize is that I didn't want the confines of a 9 to 5. I'm a very like freedom person. I want to go do the things that I want to do. I want to travel on a whim. And the thoughts of being confined to that kind of workspace, I didn't like that. But having the freedom and being able to travel and do all these things, it gave me something else outside of motherhood that I didn't even know that I was looking for or longing for. Like, I love being at home with my babies, and I love being able to show up to all of their things and be there for all of that and take them on trips with us. But I also love that I get to have like adult conversations, and so many of the mindset things that I have learned because of Plexus, as I feel like has made me such a much better mom, right? Like even right now in my kids' bathroom, I have affirmations written on their mirror, and it says, and we say these things to ourselves every day. And it says, I am brave. I am strong. I am smart. I am creative. I am loved. Like, I would have never done those things before if I hadn't been doing Plexus. And if I hadn't dove 100% into the mindset piece, to the personal growth, to all, I didn't even know what personal growth was when I got started with this. And now I'm like, I can't even imagine my life without it. And so what I will say is, during that year of running to Emerald, I feel like I hit an obstacle and a limit, like an upper level limit, every single rank. And I want that to encourage you, because there's always going to be something that's going to try to bump you back down. Like, you could be running after a goal and you could be hitting it, and then something will come crashing, right? I don't know how to explain it. It just happens. And so I had people that made me cry. I had people that said terrible things. I had a limiting belief that I couldn't run this business if my husband wasn't at home with me, and he is home again. But there was a season where we moved from Florida to Virginia, and he went back into an office full time. And that very same month, I had set a really lofty goal. We had gone gold, senior gold, and then I was going to go ruby that next month, and I missed it. I missed ruby. And it just fed into the belief that I can't do this if he's not home with me. If he's not helping me, I don't have enough business sense. I don't know how to do this. I can't. And so it fed into that. And I had a decision to make. Like, I was tore up. And it was one of those moments that it's like, okay, I can either throw in the towel now, or I can dig in deeper, and I can not let that disappointment completely crush me, and I can discipline that disappointment, and I can move on. And then we hit it the next month. And it's all about like the, in personal growth and progress and all the kind of stuff. It's how quickly can you capture those thoughts so that they're not completely ruling your life, right? If a negative thought or self-defeating thought is coming in, and you're telling yourselves all of these lies, how quickly are you able to capture that thought and dismiss it and turn it around? Right? Because that's true progress. It's not that you're never going to have that negative thought pop up. It's not that you're never going to have resistance again in your business when you start doing personal growth. It doesn't just like all of a sudden it's all like rainbows and butterflies and all this fun stuff when you determine in your mind, you're like, I'm going to go for this. And it's like clear path all the way, 100%, you got this. It doesn't work like that. You're always going to have those thoughts and those disappointing things, and stuff's going to come up, but you want to capture those thoughts and move those things aside, so that then you can fully step into who you are, right? Because you have so much to offer the world. You have so much to offer the people around you. And every single time that we let those things hold us down and keep us down for longer than they should, then we're not giving our best selves out into the world. We're not using all of our giftings. We're not using all of the things that we have, right? And somebody else is dependent on that. Somebody else needs those things. Somebody else needs your gifts. Somebody else needs your talents. They need your abilities, because each one of us is created so beautifully and so uniquely. And somebody else is waiting for you to say those kind words. Somebody else is waiting for you to pave a path so that they can believe that they can do it. A lot of what we have done in our business, I'm the kind of person that I like to go for the shock and awe. Okay. Not everybody's like that. And I tell people that when I tell people my story, and I'm like, we went emerald in a year and we double ranked sapphire and diamond in the same month. And when I tell people those kinds of stories, they're like, I could never do that. Like, that's so crazy. But what I want you to know is that part of my story and what I have done is I determined in my mind that I wanted to really push the envelope, and I wanted to show other people that their dreams are possible. So I wanted to do things that not a lot of people have done. I wanted to do things that seemed really scary or that seemed impossible, but that they were possible, and show other people that you can make those things happen, that your dreams are possible. But it all first starts with that initial step, and believing that you can do that. So that is, in a nutshell, like a little bit more of, just of my story and what we've been able to do. But I do have a little bit more. This is actually really what I was going to share with you guys. If you're good with that. Okay. So I taught on this on our Power Hour the other day, and it's one of those topics that I was like, I haven't been this excited about something in a really long time. In like teaching and training, you know how you like listen to stuff and you hear podcasts, you listen to books, and you're like, wow, that was amazing. I never thought about this concept this way. Well, that's how it was for me. And I can share with you guys the 2 podcasts that I listened to if you want to like listen to them fully, but this is like the shortened version of it. So I went on this rabbit trail listening to Chalene Johnson, and she was sharing about, the house that they were selling and all this kind of stuff. And I've learned that like, if something piques my interest in what somebody says, follow the rabbit trail and I'll go down it and I'll listen to all the things. Cause I'm like, I'm hearing this for a reason. If something like pops out at you, sticks out at you, like a phrase, sometimes you'll hear a phrase. Yes. Follow the energy. You'll hear a phrase and then you're like, that's so weird. I like heard it again and I heard it again. And it's because that's something that you need to be learning. So if something keeps popping out at you, you need to pay attention to that, because chances are the thing that's going to take you to the next level is what keeps popping out at you. You just have to be willing to see it. And what I always tell people is like, once your eyes are open to it, you can't unsee it. And I think that's why so many times people are unwilling to see it. When we do coaching calls and we ask people stuff, we say, our only rule is that you can't say, I don't know. And we tell them, you can say, I'm unwilling to see it, but you cannot say, I don't know, because deep down inside, we all truly know what is going on there. We just are unwilling to see it because we know that once we see it, we have the responsibility to do something about it. And it's scary sometimes to like get to that next level. Okay. So in this, she's talking about manifesting and vision and all this different kind of stuff, but it really was in a different way than I had heard people talk about it before. I am really big into vision casting. I think that it's huge and amazing and so essential, but a lot of times we have like the mindset and vision casting piece, and we have the goal piece, but we have to have all of it together. You can't have a goal without mindset, right? And you can't have the mindset piece without the goal. Like, you have to practically put both of these things together. And I've had, so many vision boards throughout my time with Plexus. They started out just really basic things. And then they've progressed on. And every time I enter into a new season, I redo my vision board for what that looks like, because at this point I've accomplished 2 full vision boards that I had. All of the things that were on there, I'm literally living the life that I once dreamed about. A big part of our story that I kind of forgot to leave out was that when we started on Plexus, our kids were on Medicaid. My husband had unexpectedly lost his job. And so over that next year, it was really, really hard for us. We were in a space that we never ever thought that we would be in. He went from a really good paying job to now nothing. And on top of that, we had $100,000 of student loan debt hanging over our heads. And a big drive in my why with Plexus was that I was like, you know what? I think that this is going to be the avenue to get us out of our situation. Like, I hate the situation that we're in. And I always just thought that it was going to be my husband that was going to like fix it all and be able to make it all go away. But I determined in my heart that actually I was going to be able to help make a change too. I was going to be able to do this. And I never wanted to see him be in that position where we felt like we were stuck. Okay. So really a huge part of what Plexus allowed us to do is to be able to dream again. Like, we had lost our ability to dream because when your kids are on Medicaid and on top of it, you have $100,000 in student loan debt. It's like, even if we get out of the situation, we still have all of this debt to pay off. Like, how in the world are we going to be able to do that? And so slowly but surely, we started to be able to dream again about what our lives were going to look like. We were able to, when we hit Diamond, and we were able to pay off that $100,000 of student loan debt in 15 months. Which is crazy. We always said that we wanted to move out to Tennessee and be close to my parents. We bought the house next door to them. I always said that I wanted to have a huge playground for our kids. So we built one when we moved out here. We just cash flowed a pool. And they've been able to use it all summer. Like, there's all of these things that were once just a vision on my dream board are actually my reality right now. And so I love when people talk about vision casting and all those different kinds of things. And I heard about it in just a little bit of a different way. And so many times we start with the thing that we want. But what I'm learning through coaching right now is that everything that we do or don't do is based off of a feeling that we are seeking or a feeling that we want to avoid. Every single action that you don't take in your life is based off of those things. So when you think about dreams and you think about all that, so many times we just put the house or the pool or this or that or whatever it is on our board. And I always tell people, you have to connect with that feeling, right? You have to imagine it in your mind first. You have to have an emotional connection to whatever that dream is. You have to actually first see it in your mind, feel it emotionally, and then next you will actually experience it out in the world. But she talks about kind of reversing it a little bit. Instead of having the thing and then connecting an emotional piece to it, start with the feeling. What is the feeling that you are going after? What is the feeling that you are seeking for your next rank, right? Instead, we're so many times we're like, oh, I just want to hit Ruby, or I just want to hit Emerald, or I want to hit Diamond, or I want to hit this, whatever those things look like, right? It's a very specific thing with a number, but that number is not going to be what drives you. Those 500 points, those 1,500 points, those 4,500 points, they are not going to be what drives you. It's the feeling behind there. What feeling are you running after? What feeling is that rank going to provide for you? So if you can emotionally connect with that thing first, it's going to make a huge difference. How do you want to feel? You know, like when you think about your freedom, you think about time freedom, you think about financial freedom. Okay, that's great. But how do you want to feel when you experience those things? What is that feeling that you are going after? What do you want to experience when you have those things? So don't necessarily start with the things, start with the feelings that are going to be there, because that's actually what's going to drive you to your goal by that emotional connection, right? You have to imagine that it has already happened, right? You have to imagine that you are like, let yourself go there for a minute. Like, I want you to think about that next goal that you have, right? Think about that goal. Something popped up in your mind when I talked about whatever that next goal is, something popped up into your mind. Okay. I want you to take a minute and I want you to imagine that you are actually living in that moment. You have to make space in your brain for that thing. And if you're sitting there and you're like, I can't imagine because it seems so impossible. It seems so far in the future. Okay, you have to start retraining your brain now to allow yourself to be like, I can actually experience this, right? If that next goal seems too big, break it down to a smaller one. Break it down to a smaller one that you believe, right? Break it to something that you believe that you can, as you start, you can train your mind to go there. And once in your mind, you're like, okay, I've got this one. go to the bigger one, right? Expand it. Let yourself take a few minutes. If you just took a few minutes every day to allow the space in your brain for you to be able to imagine the feeling of what it would be like for you to hit that next rank, your odds and percentages of you increasing and actually reaching that goal goes through the roof. I mean, literally just by you writing down a goal, like actually pen, paper, writing it down, you increase your odds significantly of that goal, of you accomplishing that goal. It's amazing what will happen when our mind starts to believe it. Like when I was going Emerald in a year, my mind believed that it was possible. And so because I believed it was possible, the things that normally would have stopped other people, it didn't stop me. Because in my mind, I had already experienced it. I had imagined all the feelings of what it would be like to walk across that stage 1 year from now. I knew all those feelings. I had already experienced it. I had cried about it. I had felt all the things. I had already had it. And then it was able to happen in real life. And this is the piece, you guys, that was so huge for me when I heard this shift. I've always talked about and always heard, and I even shared with you guys, right? When a thought comes into your brain that does not serve you well, you have the ability to break up with that thought and you can dismiss that thought, right? I've always heard that, right? We always heard about how we need to like get rid of the things that are no longer serving us and all, but I never put the pieces together for myself about why that was so important, okay? So if you want something new in your life, right, and you're going after it, you have to, wherever you want change, or you want to change something in your life, right? Wherever you are right now, there isn't room for that thing. Currently where you are, if you're not progressing, right, and you're not reaching the things that you want, it's because you have not made space for that thing. So the reality that you're in right now, the current state that you're in, you don't have space. So part of what we have to do is we have to make space for that new thing. You would never buy a new couch for your living room and leave the old couch in there and just kind of be like, well, we're just going to kind of figure this out. We're just going to leave it here. We're going to have 2 full couches in our living room. That's ridiculous. Like nobody would do that, right? But when we want to have something new in our life, we want to reach a new goal, we want to get to a new level, we want to reach new success, you have to make space for it, right? You have to get that old couch out of there, make space for it so that then the new thing can come. There's 2 things that can happen, right? It will either be sometimes you can get that new thing in there, right? And because you were unwilling to let go of that old thing, you will bump right back down to where you were, right? You will lose that thing that you had because there simply wasn't enough space. You did not make the space. And so many times we're like, why am I going to make the space beforehand? I will make the space when it gets there. It's not going to work that way, you guys. You can't wait until that new thing is there. Imagine how chaotic your house is going to be if you just wait until if you're getting that new couch. Your house would be so crazy and chaotic. It would be a cluster if you just decided we're just going to keep this couch in here until this one comes. No, you're going to get rid of it. You're going to make the space so that the new one can come and fit in there. Well, the same thing works in our minds, right? The reason you have to get rid of the things that are no longer serving you, that are taking up space, that aren't allowing you to grow or expand. And that was huge for me. I was like, oh my goodness, I knew I needed to get those thoughts out, but I didn't understand why. And this connected that why piece for me. It was like, oh my goodness, because I need to make space for the new that is coming, right? We have to get rid of those limiting beliefs. We have to get ourselves in the right state of mind so that you can believe that that next thing is inevitable for you. It doesn't matter what that goal is. It doesn't matter what rank you are. It doesn't matter where you're at on here. But you have to get yourself in that right state of mind so that you can believe that it is inevitable for you. Some of you have to like retrain your nervous system, right? Because you're just in like such panic and always so stressed out and tense. And it's like, you got to learn to take some deep breaths and allow your nervous system to upgrade. Okay. You got to be able to do that. You have to tell yourself that like what you're feeling is excitement, not fear. It's the same thing. Our brains just sometimes get a little freaked out and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. And it's like, no, this is really exciting. Retrain your nervous system to make that the new norm, that like, that's okay. Like in order to make that space and make that room, you have to get rid of those bad habits and you have to make room for those new ones. You have to learn to let go of those things that you're holding on to, right? A lot of you put your worth in those things and you have to be willing to just like let that go. So there's thoughts, there's things that we have, and Jess Heffley calls this hugging the porcupine, and that we have things that we hold on to so tightly that are hurting us. Some of you guys have these limiting beliefs around yourself, but it's comfortable because it's what you've always told yourself, and it's what you've always believed, and it's what you've always thought. And it is like you are hugging this porcupine for dear life. And as you're doing it, you are hurting yourself. But I'm here to tell you, you can release that. You can stop hugging the porcupine. You can let that thing go in order to make space for what that new thing is. You don't have to hold on to those things anymore. And I will tell you that some of you are so scared to let go of those things because you're afraid of what that future might look like because it's uncomfortable. But it is more painful for you to stay in the same place, clinging on to the same old things that you have always thought, than it is to let those things go and upgrade your thoughts. It is going to be so freeing to create that space. And then you're not going to feel overwhelmed when that new thing comes in, because you're like, I was here for it. I was ready for this. I was ready for this thing. I made the space here so many times. Okay, this is actually a funny story. So I had a girl who joined my team. She was actually one of my first jewels, and I was gold when she joined my team. Okay. And she would get people on the phone with me and she would introduce me and she'd be like, hey, this is my friend Megan. She's about to go emerald. She would introduce me as that because I portrayed to people, even as a gold, that I knew what I was doing, even though I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue. I was making training videos at silver about how to be successful in plexus. I didn't know what I was saying. I had no idea, but I knew I couldn't wait until I was emerald to do the things. I knew that I had to make the space, right? And step into those things and do that long before I was ready, because I believed it in my heart so much that I was going to be that then I started doing the things and I started operating in that space because I believed it to be true. And so, in that, when we have those goals, we have those dreams, we have all of those things, reverse engineering can be such a big part of that, right? You gotta see that big picture and then reverse engineer it and break it down into like step-by-step things. Like when my husband and I were paying off student loan debt, we had to know exactly how much we were paying off, when we wanted to pay it off, and how much we needed every single month. And when we would get our paycheck, we would tithe and we would pay our debt down every single time, and we would figure the rest out, right? Because if we waited until the end of the month, there would not be a whole lot of money that was left, right? We had to reverse engineer to figure out what that looks like. But so many times people will ask the question and they'll ask a question to something that's really big, really overwhelming. And they'll be like, okay, how do I become a jewel? How do I become a diamond? How do I become a 5-star diamond? How do I do all of these things, right? And they think that they're going to get this really quick, like 1-paragraph answer, right? But what you have to realize, you guys, is that anything that you really, truly want, anything that you want to do, starts with you realizing that no one is going to tell you how to do it. Right? We have to be a big girl and we have to figure it out ourselves, right? That's a huge step of it. So many times we like to ask these scary questions of like, how do I do that? I have no idea how to do it. I can't, right? I didn't know how to do it. I had no idea. I just started making videos because I knew that's what other jewels were doing. I was watching videos. So I thought, well, I should probably make some if that's what all the jewels are doing, right? So we ask these questions, we get so freaked out and overwhelmed because in our hearts, right? In our hearts, we know that we can figure it out. You know in your heart that you can figure it out, whatever it is, that next thing to do. But we're also so scared to figure it out because if we had all of the steps, then we would have to actually follow through with those steps. But we have so much self-doubt. We have so many blocks that prevent us from doing that, right? Okay. If you're the person that you loved the most in the world, okay, it's like a ridiculous example, but just go with me here, okay? And the person you loved most in the world, if they called you and they said, I've been kidnapped and I need you to get a private jet plane here within 24 hours or I'm a goner, right? Would you be like, you know what? I've never done that before and I don't know how to do that. So I'm so sorry. I can't help you. Would any of you do that? No. I can guarantee you that you would figure out some way to make that happen. You would have no idea how to do it. You would have no clue, but you would determine in your mind, I'm just going to figure it out, right? No one's going to tell you how to do it. You just have to figure it out. You know, my girls, they were doing some training. They're down at Jewel School right now, and they did some training beforehand, and they gave this analogy. It's kind of similar to that, but it's like if your toddler was on the other side of an 8-lane highway, would you sit there and be like, oh my gosh, okay, what's the best way to get across this highway? Oh, I just don't know if I have it in me. I haven't been running in a while. I don't think I can do that. These cars are going really fast. No, none of you would be sitting there being like, I just don't think I can get my baby on the other side of I just can't do it. This 8 lanes, there's too many cars. There's too much obstacles in the way. This just seems too difficult. No. You would figure out a way to make that happen. You would risk it. You would do scary things. You would do things that you felt like were impossible, but you would figure out a way to get over there, right? That's how your why has to be, right? That emotion, that feeling that we talked about in the beginning, that feeling has to be so strong that it is like the energy of a mom saying, I'm going to save my baby on the other side of this highway, that I have to get to them. And when you can get that level connected with your why of what that next goal is, you will be unstoppable. So that's what I have for you guys.
I love it. Okay, y'all ask Megan questions in the chat. I'd love to hear some of them. Megan, do you think that in the beginning you just like, where did it go from like, I mean, 5 months to silver? Like, what was the belief that either Alita or, you know, Jen Leith or whoever, like, was there something that like clicked for you of like, oh wait, they think I can do this? Like, was it just they kept pressing you? Was it like one call where they got you on and were like, you're going to convention, and you were like, well, dang, if I'm spending money on convention, I might as well do this. Like, where do you feel like, can you look back and actually see the shift between like, I'll help 3 people get started and get $100 and I'm going gold, and in my head I'm going emerald?
Okay, so some of it was I would jump. Okay, so I was so annoyed when my mom added me to the team page. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't say I was doing this as a business. Why did she add me? This is so annoying. And then I started like just like looking at the posts. And I started looking at like the income posts and like what people were making, like commission checks would drop and they'd be posting how much they make. And I'd look at that and I'd be like, people do not make $20,000 a month doing this. This is insane. And then I was like, oh my gosh, but no, I actually know these people. Like they do actually make this kind of money. This is crazy. And so I got curious because I was like, well, we're not doing great. So like this looks pretty promising, but I still was really doubtful. And then I started jumping on calls, like team calls that were about mindset and business training. And I was applying it to my other business. And I was like, hang on, I feel like something's missing here. I was like, I very clearly cannot make this kind of money over here in what I was doing. And it was more like a hobby too. It was just so like I could get my kids books, you know, it was like, it wasn't really like a thing. And I thought, this training over here is like really good. Like it just piqued my interest. And I don't know why in that season it did, because I had never been interested in anything like that before. And so I would just jump on and I would listen. And it was like, I don't know, it's just like slowly things built my belief over time. I wouldn't say that it was one certain thing. I will say going to convention, that hands down changed everything. I don't think I would have gone emerald in a year. Actually, I'm pretty like 100% certain that I would not have gone emerald in a year had I not gone to convention, because that changed so much for me in my belief and everything. So that was a massive, like, you know, massive game changer for me.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things is that how many times we've all said, like, get people on team pages, get people involved in the customer page, tag people so they know what's going on, invite them to the call. Like, it's all those little drips. And I just think about all the tiny little drips, but also at the same time, like Alita going, God, you have to do this with me. I mean, I can't even imagine having the belief of Alita like in your ear going, you can do this. I'd be like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but if you think I can do it, I mean, her passion and belief of just anything is so like, if she told me I could run across that 8-lane highway, I'd be like, done. I don't have any clue how I'm doing it, but I think that's so impressive. I also like one of the greatest things I think you said, Beck, I wanted you to speak into whatever like really was powerful for you. But when you said I made videos at silver and at gold because I saw other leaders doing that, and that's just what I assumed you did. I want everybody on this call to write down like 3 things that you see leaders doing that you are not doing in your business and that you actually need to start doing to switch the tide. Like, if you actually want to start acting like a leader, being seen as a leader by your team, and feeling like a leader in your own skin, then you need to start doing leader things. And so what does that look like? And last week, Jordan Roddenberry talked about the 5 levels of leadership. And if you're a level 1 leader, great. Self-awareness that you are a level 1 leader. And you need to know, this is what I need to do to be a level 2 leader. And I need to do it now, because before the new furniture comes, before you get those leaders in, you have to have the floors cleaned and the rug laid out and all the things ready for that new couch to come in that Megan was talking about. And to me, that is leveling up your leadership now. Before, if you say, as soon as I get 3 business builders, then I'm going to like level up my leadership because then I'll have people listening to me, you've lost them. I am sorry, but you have now lost 3 customers that will probably not reorder next month because you didn't actually have anything in place for them to come into. So if you want to be a leader, like if you want to be emerald a year from now, or sapphire or diamond, or let's just say you want to make $5,000 a month, whatever rank that looks like a year from now, or you want that feeling that you wrote down of accomplishment, of security, out from underneath debt, just relief. I mean, can we all just know what that relief would feel like on our shoulders to not have debt and to have margin in our bank accounts? That just is like anything. You could throw anything at me right now and our bank account could handle it. I just think like if you are ready for that, you need to know what it's going to take, what that room preparation needs to look like for when those people come in. Because what I wanted to ask Megan is, who are your leaders? Where did you find them? But she only found leaders because she was preparing ahead of time. She was making those videos. She was pouring personal development in. She had vision. So I really think what's important isn't necessarily where the level 1 leaders come from. It's, are you prepared for them when they come in? Are you actually doing leadership work in yourself? Teaching a masterclass. I love that, Kelly. Oh, the Les Brown podcast. I was going to ask you to send us that video that you listen to every single day. Just send it over to me and I'll send it to y'all. I'll when I post the recording, I'll post that in there with it. Beck, is there anything that you wanted to say?
I would love for y'all to ask a question or two, because I feel like this is your time to get some coaching outside of your typical upline.
Okay, I have a question. I think maybe you kind of answered it. But you're saying emotionally connect to the things and like all of that stuff. But if you don't, how did you really pour the belief into you? Because you're the only one that could build your own belief. So what did you do intentionally? Because in order to have these things, you have to have the belief first. So what did you do for that?
Okay, so a few different things that I did is I used to have Post-it notes all over, hot pink Post-it notes all over our white kitchen. It did not look glorious. And people would come over and they'd be like, what are you doing over here? Like, this does not look good. I was like, it's not about that. Like, I have to look at these things every single day. So it's picking certain things that like you want to believe about yourself. And maybe at first, like you don't fully believe those things, And that's okay. But you could have a bridge thought into that of like, I'm open to believing that I will be a jewel one day. Right? Like maybe you can't fully believe that. That's like a new thing that I'm learning about, is like, maybe you don't fully believe that thing yet, but like you can have a small bridge thought into that. Like, I'm open to believing that I can be a jewel one day. You're not saying 100% without a shadow of a doubt, but that will come. That belief will come. So I had different Post-its written all over. I had, I am the master of retention. People are drawn to me. I'm an amazing leader. I'm an incredible wife, mother, all these things that I wanted to believe about myself and that I wanted to see on a daily basis. So that's going to be different for everyone. And some of those things, like the new updated ones that I have that I wrote, on my mirror, a lot of those things came from like personal growth things that I developed. Like one that I have on there right now is I have all the common sense that I need. And that might be like, that's a really weird thing to say about yourself. But I actually struggled with that for a really long time because I don't have a lot of common sense. Like, I just don't have it. And so I carried just a lot of like shame and different things about that, because people would laugh and I'd laugh, but inside I was like, it's not funny. Like, because my brain doesn't think that way. And so through coaching, I learned like, that's okay that my brain doesn't think like other people. I have all the common sense that I need. And I'm a brilliant businesswoman. I'm great at business, but the common sense is not going to be there. It's just not there. My brain is not wired that way. So part of it too is like just owning who you are in that, of like, maybe you have certain skills that other people don't, or maybe you feel like you're lacking in something that other people are really good at, but that doesn't have to hold you down. Like I went diamond without common sense, right? Like, it's okay. I did it. I was still there. It didn't hold me back. Right. And so whatever those things are that you're learning about yourself as you dive into personal growth, and is something like sticks out to you, a lesson that you're like, oh, I need to remember this, write it down. Also set alarms on your phone. I have alarms set to go off on my phone. And we really did this the month that we were going like double ranking. That was huge. But I still to this day set alarms on my phone. Alita does this too. She sets alarms on her phone and different things will pop up at different times. Like the one that's in the morning for me is like, I greet this day with confidence and ease. Right? Like I have all the things that you're going for, because what you focus on expands, right? And so this is just like a little sciencey for you, but like there's a thing in your brain, and Becky probably knows all about this. Don't judge me on how I'm describing this, okay? So we all, we hear that phrase all the time, right? What you focus on expands. So if you're thinking all of these thoughts about like, well, I could never reach that goal, or I'm not an emerald, or I'm not this, or whatever it is, then your brain wants to prove you correct. So if those are the things that you are thinking about, your brain's going to filter in that information, because we have a thing, it's called your reticular activating center of your brain, and it's a filter. So like at any moment you could have like up to 2 million pieces of information coming at you. And so its job is to filter out the things that are not important and only allow in the things that are important. And you're like, well, how does your brain know what is important? Your brain knows what is important based on what you think about the most. So by writing the Post-its, by setting the alarms, by intentionally taking your thoughts to these new things, now you're telling your brain, hey, these things are really important. And so your brain's like, I'm going to prove to them that these things are true and correct, because your brain wants to prove you correct in all those things. And so then it's going to start giving you evidence that was always there, but you never saw it because it was filtering out, that evidence that's there to prove to you that you can do those things, that you are great at this, that you have all that, because now you are seeing it. So that's kind of where like that whole phrase, what you focus on expands, like that's so important. So if you want those things to happen, you have to retrain your brain to think about them. So you set practical things, like you set alarms on your phone, you put Post-its, you write on your mirror, you do all these things. You literally you could spend 2 minutes every day, like closing your eyes and visualizing what it would feel like to accomplish that thing.
I have a question right quick. Hey, Megan, this has been a year of tremendous growth for me. And I want to tell you why I think that started, because in January, I did your vision casting workshop and 100% took it so seriously and did every single step and answered every single question. And it was a beautiful way to start the year, and it was transforming. So thank you for that. My question is, are you doing anything like that again? Like, what are your plans? Will there be another part 2 or anything like that? that's coming?
So that's so funny that you bring that up. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that, because it's one of those things, like, you do it and you put in the work and you wonder, did anyone actually like do all the things, and did it make a difference for anybody, or was I just like recording, out to the space? But that's amazing. And I love that. I do not know if I will be doing another one. I've thought about like just releasing the videos, and doing a few extra updates of things that I've learned like over the year. But I will have to think about that more, because yeah, I was kind of like debating it. So we'll see. I will let you know if I do, though.
Thank you.
I'm just going to plug also, Megan has a lot of, this is what I love, that she was watching Andrea's old YouTube videos back in the day, but Megan actually, there's a lot of videos either filmed by Megan or filmed by other people on YouTube. Megan, I think you are just a really good trainer. Like, I really do. You did, I think it was Jordan Berry's jewel call, or no, you know what? It wasn't Jordan. It was Emily Burgess's jewel call. It might have been like last summer or something. And that YouTube video was so good for me. So just to plug you and tell you guys, just go find some of her great YouTube training. And you guys, I know Kelly has already given a personal endorsement, but doesn't this do something for you to hear this stuff? And who do you invite to these calls? Because as much as you need to get your cup filled, there is a silver that needs to get her cup filled. That's one of the things that I'm hearing from Megan's buy-in is like and it reminds me of me, she was intelligent and resistant, which sometimes are the two things that will push us back. Like, oh, this girl is like smart and she's pushing back on everything I say. And like, she was a future diamond. And thank God that Alita had Jen Leaf pushing behind her, to say, you should go to convention. And I just want you to think about people on your team that you're avoiding pushing into, you're avoiding leaning into the tension. And I want to remind you that so many of those people are like diamonds in the making, because they just need someone to come and push on them, push back. Andrea pushed back on me, and I know it was not fun for her. But like, she was resilient and it worked. And I just hear so much of that in Megan's story too. And I just want to encourage y'all to keep leaning into that tension with some of your people who, you go, oh my gosh, they'd be so good, but they're giving me so much pushback. Don't personalize it. It's not about you.
Megan, thank you so much, not only for showing up today, but for being my friend. For like, I just think about the fact, like, I did a video years and years ago. I wrote this down, really knowing not nearly as much as I know now, right? We all, like, Megan knows more now than she probably did when she was making those silver and gold videos. And I promise you, Becky knows more now about products than she was when she was making product videos 5 years ago. Like, the information we would pour in now. I tried to remake some of those videos I did on YouTube. I'm like, I'm so much smarter now. I'm going to remake these videos. And like, y'all, nobody watched them. Because what was interesting is when I made the videos is when I was learning the information. And you will teach so much better as you are learning. What Megan is pouring into you right now, Megan is learning right now. She literally said, I just finished this book. Did you hear that at the very beginning? She said, I just finished this book, believe it. Like, just finished it, just absorbed it. So I promise you, what Kelly heard a year ago, or I think it was it 2 years ago when you were in Nashville, Megan, where you gave that great, everyone just loved that vision casting talk that you did in Nashville when y'all did kind of like your little power, like those local Nashville, anyways, doesn't matter. But you've learned so much more even now, right? So it's where you're learning. So wherever you are learning right this minute, that's what you need to pour out on YouTube. I'm not saying, present yourself like you know every single thing about the comp plan if you don't, or every single thing, but where you are learning right now, teach that to other people. If you follow Megan on Instagram, and I'm going to encourage you to go find her on Instagram, but when you follow Megan, she talks about all this because this is her daily life. She literally talked about, was it the mirror markers? I think she was just talking about yesterday. She talks about these things that she writes on the boys' mirror. She talks about the things that she's learning and the books that she's reading and the way that this is affecting her life all the time. She literally learns out loud because the excitement of what she's reading or absorbing, like, literally comes out her and she digests yes, out loud for all of you. And so I just want to encourage you, like when you see leaders like this, I promise you, if they are teaching you something valuable, it is because they are constantly absorbing new information. So if you're like, I don't know what to train on, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What book are you in the middle of right now that you can't put down? I want to encourage you to be a learner, and that will encourage you to be a teacher and a leader. So Megan, thank you so much. I am so grateful for you. I'm thankful for every single person on this call. I cannot wait to see what God does with this knowledge and belief and vision that you have now gotten poured into you. And I cannot wait to see how you magnify it. Y'all have a great day.